Morning. So, here we are at the fifth Sunday of Lent, and we have heard another lengthy passage from the Gospel of John about the raising of Lazarus. 2 weeks ago, we had the story of the Samaritan woman and Jesus meeting at Jacob's well. And last week, we heard the story of Jesus' encounter with the man born blind. All of these gospel passages are leading us up to the big finale of Holy Week, ending the glorious celebration of Jesus' resurrection on Easter Sunday. Darkness and light, sin and death, and new life. These are familiar themes throughout the Gospel of John. The story we hear today adds another theme about relationship, and especially about friendship, not only between Jesus and Lazarus, but also between each of us and God. How did Jesus and Lazarus come to know one another? Were they kinsmen who saw each other every so often at family gatherings like weddings and funerals, and as well as at community events and festivals? My take on the story is this. Jesus and Lazarus became friends as boys because of their fathers, and that friendship remained into adulthood. I think it started when Lazarus' father hired Joseph, Jesus' father, to do some work on his house. He had heard of Joseph's reputation as a good man and a skilled woodworker, and asked him to come to his home to build a new porch on his house. As was the custom at the time, Joseph brought along his son as a helper and apprentice, and that's how Jesus met Lazarus and his sisters, Mary and Martha. When work was finished for the day, the children played together and talked. Joseph and Jesus came back many times to the home of Lazarus, and even after the fathers died, the young men remained friends. Perhaps this great loss in each of their lives strengthened the bond they had between them. Whatever the source of their friendship, Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha, expected that when Jesus heard of the seriousness of his illness, he would come and heal him before he dies. Jesus waits 2 days before leaving to see Lazarus. If these men were such good friends, why didn't Jesus rush to Lazarus' side as soon as he heard of his illness? What was he thinking? When Jesus and his disciples finally arrived at Lazarus' home in Bethany, the family and friends of Lazarus were filled with grief. By this time, Lazarus had been in the grave for 4 days, bound by the grave wrappings and lying in the stone cold tomb. On meeting Jesus, Martha said, "If you had been here, my brother would not have died." Perhaps Jesus was thinking, "Martha, Martha, you have missed the point. I am here now. I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even if they die, will live." Martha left and went to find Mary and told her what Jesus had said. Mary ran out of the house and to the place where Jesus was and knelt at his feet. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her, and many who were with her were weeping, he was very much moved. Some of the people even said, "If he could open the eyes of a man born blind, Why could he not have kept this man Lazarus from dying? Jesus knew what he had to do. He walked up to the opening of the tomb and told some men to remove the stone that was covering the entrance. Martha reminded him, "Lord, there is already a stench because he has been dead 4 days. He is not just newly dead, he is dead. But Jesus calmly looked upwards and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I say this so that you may be glorified, and that the people might believe that you sent me." Then he said in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" After a few moments, the dead man came out, his hands and feet still bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in the cloth. Jesus said to those who stood close by the entrance, "Unbind him and let him go." This narrative from John's Gospel was written so that Jesus could reveal his identity to his followers. "I am the resurrection and the life." It is also Jesus' invitation to us to participate in his promise. "I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly." Just as Jesus calls Lazarus to come out of the cold, dark tomb, he calls us to experience his presence in our lives today, now, at this moment, and to share this great joy with others in the community around us. Just as Jesus invites the crowd to participate in giving life back to Lazarus, he invites us, the believing community, to play our role in facilitating and sharing the life of Christ. Our individual relationships with God and our friendships with one another are very important. They need to be fed, nurtured, kept alive by regular participation in prayer and worship, both private and public. As we come closer and closer to the great feast of Holy Week, there is still time to renew our relationships with God and with one another. Let us make it so.